Hello everybody and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory, prices, and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each Top 10 by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hi.
Ruben Bressler.
What's up? How you doing?
Hey. It's the post-Pro Tour come down. Oh
Indeed.
No, black red for everybody. Everybody gets to play black red. Everybody's just chain whirler.
Yep. I'm my own personal internal pie bet was won in the Goblin Chain Whirler takeover. But of course the actual chain whirler or the actual pie bet probably not so much. R.I.P. Jaya. So but yeah, definitely pleased that another red deck with a bunch of mountains in it won the Pro Tour. Red deck wins, represents.
I will give you some credit, Ruben. There was a lot of talk in chat about how boring the top 8 was because it was nothing but red decks, and people were trotting out the usual stereotype of mono red decks are not exciting to play, they're not skill intensive, and I actually defended you guys in the chat, and I even came to realize, even I was doing modding yesterday. I was modding the channel, and even watching the games, I was convinced that they were very skill-intensive games. I think that's a stereotype that it's rare that I defend red decks, but yeah, those were some pretty skill-intensive games.
No, people attack red decks as being non-skill intensive because they don't understand the intricacies. They're just very stupid, and they need to learn. So you control players, simple control players, who all you have to do is make a land drop and then play a Sphinx's Revelation for 8. Your combo is play a land for 11 turns in a row and gain 8 life. Nice deck. No, red has some interaction. You actually have to do things.
You do.
And I like my top to do things. So
That's how the tops do whatever they
fight
want.
me. Come at me. Tag me on that one, people.
Wow.
I will fight you. In a segment we call the Red Zone. Wonder who's going to win that argument.
Well, it also came down to a very dramatic finish. It came down to ripped off the top.
Yeah, that was
ripped off the top in a very awkward judge call at that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that on the show on Wednesday.
We also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention. Well, Ruben will tell us who was the most luxuriant and letting us know what card we didn't choose as one of our top 10 vanilla creatures. Ruben?
I'm so glad you asked that question because this week's winner is Jake G from the YouTubes, who writes, an interesting vanilla creature that should have made the list is Dryad Arbor. This 1/1 forest dryad has a history of tournament pedigree as a staple of Legacy Maverick. The deck often utilized Knight of the Reliquary to deploy Dryad Arbors from deck to field in order to slow aggressive decks or to make pushes in combination with Umezawa's Jite. Dryad Arbor is also iconic due to its status as the only creature that's both a land and a creature. Its uniqueness won its place in the supplemental product From the Vault Lands, where it received alternative art and a foil printing. Additionally, its identity as a land and a forest has led to controversy, leading some people to recommend that only From the Vault printing of the card be banned, while the other one be retained. If I could describe Dryad Arbor in one word, it would be peculiar, as it and its applications are quite separate from other Magic cards. Its strangeness and iconicity make it a top 10 vanilla creature. And it is technically vanilla, because it's only got the reminder text. We had a couple of only reminder text entries last week. Excellent choice, also notable with Green Sun Zenith, tons of tournament pedigree. May have won a Pro Tour, I can't recall off the top of my head, but yeah, good choice.
I had to Google iconicity. That is in fact a real word. So shout out Jake for the vocab.
Today we learned that's a real word that exists.
He's got a plethora of
Evan will never be able to pronounce it, but it's a word. Iconicity.
City.
Icon City.
Well, that was terrific. This was actually one of those that we kind of debated amongst ourselves. Is this a vanilla kind of? I guess sorta, yes, but it doesn't have any words on it. So, I mean, in and of itself, it was fantastic. This was, I would love to have another Future Sight rather, personally, because Future Sight was just crazy. It was just nuts. So weird. You just had no idea what was going on. Everything had 37 abilities, all these crazy mechanics you never saw again in your life. I mean, and one of the crazy cards was this one, a 1/1 forest land, which was awesome. So, Jake G, congratulations on winning a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. Hit us up on one of our social media channels, and eventually Aaron will remind me to actually give you a gift certificate, because I always forget, and I'm really bad about that. I'm sorry. But we're talking this week about wizards, because originally we talked about humans, but there's like 2,000 humans we're going to cut it back a little bit, to the subtype of wizards, and there's still a ton of wizards. And
I think up until very recently, wizards was the most popular creature type that was a job, as opposed to a creature type that was a race like humans or dwarves or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I've been playing a lot of modern lately, so I'm a little humansed out at the moment. Just humans is everywhere.
Well, there's definitely
playing a lot of Dominaria Draft, so I'm a little wizards up is what I am.
And I would note the free and one last note on Pro Tour Dominaria. This was the one of, if not the only Pro Tour where I was literally excited to watch Limited. I was jazzed. It was super pumping. It was awesome. There were great plays. It was really exciting. Like, it's a heck of a format. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on here and get our list started. Ruben, what's your number 10?
I'm going to start things off strong because number 10 is higher on someone else's list.
All right, yeah.
Hashtag on brand.
I only have 2 hires, but number 10 is higher on someone else's list.
I also have 2 hires we will get to. Aaron, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is a card that vintage players in particular are very excited about. I think I've seen a little bit of buzz around this in Legacy, but it's predominantly the vintage folks that are really excited about this. Cards like Mystical Tutor and Merchant Scroll are restricted in the format, so you're only allowed 1 copy of those. And this card essentially acts as a second copy of either one of those and lets you go ahead and find a spell that you're looking for. It also is a creature, so you can attack with it. It can also be blinked if you're running something like Restoration Angel. A lot of hype around this card. My number 10 is Spellseeker. Nice. So Spellseeker is from Battle Bond. It's 2 colorless and a blue. It's a creature type human wizard 1/1. When Spellseeker enters battlefield, you may search your library for an instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 2 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. Hercule's Recall, Ancestral Recall, Time Walk. These powerful, also restricted cards in Vintage you can now go ahead and get with this card. In addition to having Merchant Scroll and Mystical Tutor, this gives you another way to find those really powerful back-breaking cards that you are only supposed to have 1 of. It's supposed to be difficult to get these cards, and now having another way to find them really changes the game. And so card is sitting at $12. A pre-order ships June 8th, of course, and the art is very creepy as well. I love the art on this. Shout out to Igor Kirilluk. And a lot of hype around this card. I'm really anxious to see if it lives up to it.
This is the they carve them out sometimes in the special ancillary sets, and they say X format, here's your card. Vintage, here's Spellseeker. This card is ridiculous. It's not that good in Legacy because there's not that many powerful less than 2 mana instant sorcerers. But Vintage, that's where they go. That's where they live. That's their home.
And the days of Riptide Laboratory control decks are behind us to really take advantage of the old Trinket Mage. Or the Ethereal Recruiter was the other nickname that I had heard of. Yeah, this one goes along in that same cycle of recruiter type effects that I think is pretty sweet. Yeah, this card is extremely potent, particularly in Vintage when you can get those broken instants and sorceries.
And foils are probably going to be a $1 jillion.
Through the roof, absolutely.
Through the roof. But Spellseeker, again, just another sort of hit under Battle Bond. Battle Bond's been incredibly successful. Like, it came out late, but it doesn't matter because people are pumped, and that's terrific. Yeah. But I'll move here to my number 10. Now, before we started the broadcast, or the recording, if you will, we were talking about how excited I was to draft Kamigawa. And the Kamigawa block, which was Champions Betrayers, because we don't talk about Saviors. That's a no. That's a zip. We don't do that. That's bad.
That's like that. That's like the other Baldwin brother that no one remembers.
Exactly. But I have one of my favorite wizards of all time in Champions of Kamigawa, because this thing, from the moment that I made my cube to the moment where I no longer had a cube, this was in it from start to finish. Maluku, the Clouded Mirror, is just a terrific, fantastic creature from Champions. It was huge in Standard. It ended so many games in Cube. Let's find out why. It's a blue and 4 generic mana for a rare legendary Moonfolk Wizard. It is a 2/4 flyer. It has 1 generic mana. Return a land you control to its owner's hand, put a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with flying into play. So all your lands turn into illusions and kill your opponent really quickly.
Yeah.
Just Maluku, untap. At that point, you have up to 5 flyers, 5 other flyers plus that, so that's 7 damage right there.
At worst case scenario, it's 1 a turn.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you're making your land drop, returning 1 back to your hand, so you at least have like a force field.
Yeah, so Maluku was, again, just a force to be reckoned with from the moment that They showed up? I'm not sure. It's fine. But, like, as a card, always really exciting. I love to play with this card. I always like to draft around this card. You can draft some killer control decks. And there were some fantastic decks in Standard with this as the finisher.
No promo printings of Maluku, but there is a notable misprint printing of Maluku. Maluku El Espejo Nublado is the, I believe it's the Portuguese Portuguese version, which my good friend Anthony Avatolo has a cube that all of the cards that are in it, you play them as printed.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, the Reflecting Pool from Shadowmoor has the foil Reflecting Pool from Shadowmoor has the Plains watermark on it, so you can fetch it with your Windswept Teeth. The Cursed Scroll, the Japanese Cursed Scroll, activates for 2 colorless. And, of course, the Portuguese Maluku makes 2/2 flyers instead of 1/1s. And if you thought regular Maluku was worth a top 10 slot, boy, let me tell you, El Espejo Nublado would be much higher on our lists.
All right, let's move on here to number 9. Ruben, do you have a number 9?
I do, and it segues nicely from Aaron's Trinket Mage to a Trinket Mage, which is a flawless segue. So, Trinket Mage is 2 colorless and a blue originally from the 5th Dawn expansion, and when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost of 1 or less, reveal that card, and put it into your hand, and if you do, shuffle your library. This, of course, led to a bunch of children, as it were, various trophy mages, treasure mages, and, of course, Aaron's first entry into the top 10, but in and of itself has also been quite the human wizard in its time, seeing play in Standard a bunch, also Extended, especially as a part of the next level blue deck, as a way to go fetch up Sensei's Divining Tops, has often been used to go get a myriad of broken artifacts over its lifespan, be it things like Lion's Eye Diamonds or Voltaic Keys in Vintage, things along those lines. It had an appearance in dual decks in the Elspeth versus Tezzeret, and of course it was most recently printed in Commander 2016. It's seen play in a bunch of dual decks actually, but yeah, I just think, and it was also in another reprinted as an uncommon in Scars of Mirrodin. So reprinted in a regular expansion again, lots of dual decks, lots of extra printings, just a solid card.
Yeah, it's popular in Modern and the mono blue Tron decks. It's popular in Vintage. They love to get their Soul Rings. They love to get their Graft Digger's Cages. And then in the Outcome decks, the Paradoxical Outcome decks, they bounce it because it's a non-land permanent, and then they go ahead and redeploy it and get more value out of it, like they're probably going to do with Spellseeker. And yeah, a card is, I'm never happy to see it because I almost know what they're getting with it. But really big hit in Commander. I can't think of a single blue deck
It's in there somewhere.
I can't think of a single blue deck I have in Commander that doesn't have this card in it, just because of the sheer number of things it can get. And yeah, it's a terrific card.
Yeah, this is one of those where it's been reprinted a whole bunch, yet it's still worth about a quarter. And I know that sounds weird, but you don't get reprinted like 7 times or 5 times, whatever it is, and still hold some amount of value unless you're fantastic. This is, I believe, Aaron Forsyth's design from 5th Dawn, one of the first cards he worked on, as I recall. And it's been great. It's just one of those where you're expecting, like, oh, it has to go to the top of the library. Like, no, you just get it. You get it immediately. And that's fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah.
All right. So we move on here to Aaron's number 9. What you got?
Red's answer to a lot of things, as Ruben can attest, is to throw fire at it. Burn it. Kill it with fire. Throw damage at it.
You should fight everything with fire.
Yeah, you really should. But sometimes it doesn't work because let's say a creature has indestructible, or let's say that your burn spell does not do enough damage to kill a thing, and you don't necessarily have 2 burn spells on you. This creature gives you a way to get around that. It saw a lot of play this past weekend at the Pro Tour, specifically as a way to deal with Hazoret, which was terrorizing the top 8 and all of the previous rounds. My number 9 is Scar Mage. So Scar Mage is 1 red. It's a creature human wizard from Amonkhet, 1 power, 2 toughness with prowess, and if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a creature an opponent controls, put that many -1/-1 counters on that creature instead. So you can hit Hazoret with a lightning strike, and she's officially -3/-3 permanently. Those are counters. Really nice way to deal with that creature. Really nice way to come back and deal with a creature that you don't have the tools for right away. Like, all right, I'll give you 2 counters now, and I'll come back to you next turn and do the other 3. And this is a really neat take on what red can do as opposed to just simply destroying something or just throwing a classic burn spell at it. Art by Steve Argyle. We don't see too much of him anymore, but the art is brilliant. Card's going for about $4 right now. It's a very good card.
You know, it's a good thing they didn't give you like a 3-mana 3/3 that has first strike and deals the damage to everything. That would put a -1 on counter.
Damage.
Yeah,
right.
non-combat.
I didn't even think of that.
Roll your chains, buddy. Those chains.
Wow, that's almost. I remember when we were doing the set review, and I was interested in the Goblin Chain Whirler, and I wanted to go in the opposite direction. I was like, I want to give it Death Touch, but that's just as good.
That's what you got in standard.
Wow.
Yeah, Soul Scar Mage. I've knocked off a couple of Hazarets with Glory Bringer activations and stuff like that with my Soul Scar Mages. That's a heck of a card. Being able to Lightning Strike a Hazaret, and then because it has Prowess, block the 2/1 with your 2/3. Also not irrelevant. Another 1/2 for 1 mana with Prowess. They can't all be Swift Spears, but certainly a big fan of this guy. Also 2 Toughness in a World of Chain Whirlers. That's a big World of Chain Whirlers now, and a World of Bomat Couriers before.
Was
very relevant
as well.
Yeah, this is basically a standard all-star. This is one of those cards that it gets its time in the sun because of standard, and then it goes to modern, and we never talk about it ever again in history of whatever.
But it's possible that we see a little bit more. The blue-red wizard strategy that, there are a couple of cards that care about wizards in Dominaria, specifically Wizards Lightning.
I have seen it in Modern.
Have you?
Go.
I have seen it in Modern. Ryan Overturf, the SCG commentator, he's been championing a blue-red Wizards deck. Daniela Diaz had tried a deck out on that level. Oh, yeah, I've seen it in Modern. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's terrific because my number 9 is also a red 1-drop. And one of my favorite cards to play with, and one of the most impactful wizards during its day. Not as exciting these days, but it certainly was fantastic when it first debuted, because it first showed up in Torment, and there ain't no wizard like Grimlock Mansur. They just ain't. They just ain't. Grimlock Mansur is a 1/1 rare wizard, human wizard from Torment. It has a red tap, remove 2 cards in your graveyard from the game, it deals 2 damage to target creature or player. These days it deals 2 damage to any target. So yeah, it lets you essentially, use your fetch lands and use your burn spells twice, essentially, makes combat impossible, has been a cube all-star again from the day I built it to the day I didn't have one anymore. Grimlock Mansur is a mainstay, is one of the defining red mages, in my opinion.
Popular card in Modern, especially against the when Abzan Company was a thing. It was great at destroying the Birds of Paradises, the Mana Dorks, great against Infect, great against Affinity, anything with like small little creatures. This is definitely, I don't know many burn decks. If it's not in the main deck, it's at least in the sideboard. It's just the decks that it's good against, it's fantastic against.
Yeah, it was also a staple of the legacy, what were called Canadian Threshold decks, now are Rug Delver. It even has a vintage championship win under its belt. 2004, Mark Perez won the East Coast Vintage Championships with a style of Canadian Threshold that also had stuff like Spiketail Hatchling. It was a weird world before good cards were printed. But yeah, Grimlock Mansur is a heck of a card. I had a secondary list of cards for my list of do I want to have a list that's entirely non-blue wizards? And Grimlock Mansur was the closest one to my top 10 that didn't actually make it in of my real list. So there you go.
Yeah, it is terrific, and it's always funny pulling up tournament results from 14 years ago.
Yeah,
we're old.
Very old. Very old.
We're here to number 8. Ruben, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is one of those 3 wizards that does not have blue mana required for its casting cost. If I told you the combination of creature types, Minotaur Wizard, all right, there aren't a ton of entries on the list. No. You've got your Raka Disciple. You've got your Ethereum Horn Sculptor. You've got your Minotaur Illusionist. You've got your Burning Fist Minotaur as recently as Hour of Devastation. Mm-hmm. But then you've got a 4 of in Tom Martell's Aristocrats winning Pro Tour list. You've got a card that Jerry Thompson, to great effect, comboed with Harvest Pyre in his popular Jeskai Graveyard Garbage deck. And you've got just an insanely
Mid-range.
Powerful card in Boros Reckoner.
Yeah.
Boros Reckoner is 3 Boros mana. So red, white, red, white, red, white for a Minotaur Wizard originally from the Gate Crash expansion. It's a 3/3 for 3 mana, and what you get for that 3 mana, whenever Boros Reckoner is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target creature or player, and then for a Boros mana, either red or white, you can give it first strike until the end of the turn. This is just good old-fashioned beef. I mean, you can pay 3 white mana in your white weenie deck and be happy with the result. You can pay 3 red mana in your mono red deck and be very happy with the result as well. Or you can be playing some sort of Mardu mix-up like Tom Martell did up there in Montreal to great effect as well. Just a solid body, excellent thing to play on turn 3. Very often a 2-for-1 against the aggro decks, and just a solid rate of investment and return, even at 4. If you played on turn 4 with a mana up left to activate it, just a very solid card. Combos very well with Harvest Pyre, as I mentioned. Of course, things like Blasphemous Act as well had been comboed with in the past. Just a really, really good card.
It immediately changes the combo math, too. You know, I seem to recall playing, you know, towards the end of that standard, I was playing this crazy black-green list with Nemesis of Mortals, and, you know, you'd work so hard to get this fatty on the table, and you think you're home free. You know, they might have some mana dorks to chump with, but the minute that comes down, it's like, oh, I could be taking 10 right now. Yeah. You know, it really changes the way that you attack and how they block, and yeah. And then I remember just some of the removal in the format. You know, you really needed like clean answers. You couldn't use, just like I said earlier, the typical red way of removing creatures doesn't work when you're targeting a Boros Reckoner.
Yeah, because it's whenever it's dealt damage. And there was like crazy weird combos to mess with your opponent with Boros Charm and stuff. Yep. As I recall,
Boros Charm, Azorius Charm lets you gain infinite life if you could deal damage.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so as I recall, this was one of, if not the only rare from Gatecrash that was not previewed. They didn't give this to anybody to preview. They didn't feel, at least this is my take, that they didn't feel this card was going to drive hype and or excitement, when it turns out it was one of the best freaking cards in the set, because it was playable from day one. It was terrific from day one. It was a monster in Limited. I mean, this card is really difficult to play against in Limited, let's put it that way. And yeah, it was just like, why didn't you give this to somebody? You could have wrote a whole article about how cool this is in mono red, mono white, red white, whatever. Like, this card was sweet.
Yeah,
and continues to be. All right. Let's see here. Aaron, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is a card that some of you are going to be surprised to see on my list, as it is one of the many banes of my existence. But I can't deny how powerful it is, how unique it is. The art is sufficiently creepy. The flavor text is insanely dark, and I hope I never have to see it again. My number 8 is Yixla Jailor. So Yixla Jailor is one colorless.
Classic Aaron Campbell.
I know, right?
So
it's one colorless and a black. It's from Future Sight. We were talking about how great Future Sight is. Power 2, toughness 1, creature type zombie wizard. And it just has one line of text. It says, cards in graveyards lose all abilities. There's no graveyard hate like this. You know, typically you can't target a graveyard. It exiles a graveyard. This is so unique in that, yeah, the cards are there, but they don't really do anything. Interesting rules interaction with Snapcaster Mage. If the Yixla Jailor is out first, it removes whatever's on the card, but if you play a Snapcaster after the fact, it then gives something flashback, and you can use Snapcaster to get spells back from the graveyard. But yeah, a lot of rules interactions with this card, but there's just nothing like this, and the art is really creepy. Shout out to Matt Cavada, the flavor text, talking about like gagging and masking dead. Like, what? But this is when you see somebody playing a Yixla Jailor, you know that they are determined to not lose to any graveyard shenanigans, and I have to respect that. Like, there's just nothing like this.
Wow, from they will be gagged and masked, and they shall be known by none other. Wow. Gets real up in there.
Look, a Grafdigger's cage is a literal cage of spikes that they put around. Like, if you're working on undead security, you know what you're up to. So.
Yeah.
Wow. But Yixla Jailor, again, this was one of those, like, kind of neat, almost French vanilla, particularly for Future Sight. Like, Future Sight was weird. This is one of the least weird things going on in it.
Right.
But actually has a lot of power and a lot of really impact against the graveyard decks, which is unfortunate for Aaron. Well, let me tell you, my number 8 is super popular these days. It wasn't popular, like it was popular, then it wasn't popular, it was super popular, oh my gosh. And it was created in a very unique way. And it's it's one of those that they made another version of it and they changed a whole bunch of things about it, and like the flavor text and the image and stuff, and you just don't know. Like, the flavor text isn't as cool as the original one, but the image doesn't have the impact as the original one. Because if you ever chant so loudly that no one can get a spell in edgewise, you are the Meddling Mage. Yes. And Meddling Mage is Chris Pakula, as he won the Invitational, and is a blue and white for a rare 2/2 from Plane Shift. That, of course, is a human wizard that says, as it enters the battlefield, choose a non-land card name. Spells with a chosen name cannot be cast. And they had another printing in Alara Reborn, where there was a very, very beautiful woman of color hanging out, being the spellcaster stuff. But it wasn't Chris Pakula. It wasn't. The whole reason this card exists is because the player who won the event got to make the card as we know it today. And that may or may not come up later. I guess we'll see. But it's just one of those things where, like, Meddling Mage these days, my God, it's a $30 card. Like, this thing is legit.
Well, you can thank Modern Humans for that now. They are running a playset in the main deck. This isn't just a sideboard card anymore, and being able to, for me specifically, being able to name Conflagrate, being able to name a Tron piece, being able to name, whatever, and then having that creature get really big with things like Thalia's Lieutenant. I was facing down a 5/5 Meddling Mage the other day, and I was just like, how did I get here? Meddling Kids was the unhinged version. For 2 a white and a blue, you get a 2/3. Spells with a chosen word in their text box can't be cast. A card has had a huge impact on the game and is seeing a big resurgence thanks to Modern.
Yeah,
and cards like Meddling Mage have had such this was the first card like it, where you name a card and do something. Ever since then, we've had Pithing Needles, we've had Gideon's Interventions, we just had Sorcerer's Spyglass banned in Brawl. Cards where you name a card don't come around all that often. And Meddling Mage was, I believe, the very first one that had any sort of real tournament impact, making the Pro Tour Sunday stage in every trip that it's ever had into Standard. And of course, much more popular in Modern now thanks to the Humans deck.
Right, because Judgment, which is when Cabal Therapy came out, which is the only other one I can think of immediately.
Sure.
Was Judgment after? Judgment was after Plane Shift?
Plane Shift was before Judgment.
Yeah.
Because it went Invasion, Plane Shift, Apocalypse, Odyssey, Torment, Judgment.
Gotcha. Okay. Torment, Judgment. Gotcha. I wasn't playing back then, so wasn't really sure. That was during the dark times, my dark period.
The long ago.
When the rocks were soft.
The land before time.
Yeah, that's when I learned how to play. That was when there were streams and stuff. It was beautiful.
Yes.
Oh, you know how to play?
Interesting fact, Evan originally learned magic through Sanskrit.
He was dusting off the tomb and blowing on the hieroglyphics.
Hey, come on, get it right. I learned through interpretive dance. Okay,
right.
It was.
That's why he knows the invocations from Amonkhet so well, is because he originally learned the magic through Egyptian.
He originated the language.
Hazaret, the pervert. Oh, okay. So let's move here to number 7. I don't have one. It is my first of 2 hires on my list. But Ruben, do you have a number 7?
I also do not have a number 7. It is also higher on someone else's list.
I'll handle this.
Aaron, you got a number 7 for us?
I do. My number 7 is a card that I didn't pay attention to for years and years. And then I started playing Modern ad nauseum. And sometimes when you're playing Modern ad nauseum, you run into this really awkward problem of your opponent gaining more life than damage you could do. I think the ceiling on Lightning Storm is like 35, and that's depending on how many lands you played. Sometimes you can play Conflagrate and get a little bit higher, but back when Abzan Company was a thing, they were known for gaining like infinite life. And at that point, they would expect you to just scoop. And I remember I was at an event one time and this young man was doing his Malira thing, and I was like, I need to know exactly how much life you're gaining. And he was like, why? And I was like, I just need to know. And he was like, okay, 500,000. And I was like, cool. Are you done with your turn? And he goes, yeah. And I think he was expecting me to scoop. And then I untap and play my number 7, which is Laboratory Maniac, and do my thing and win the game. It's not about making you lose the game. It's just about me winning the game. Right. So Laboratory Maniac is 2 and a blue. It's from Innistrad, creature type human wizard, 2/2. It says if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So basically you would ad nauseum, you would spend a couple of Simian Spirit Guides and a spare mana to make this, and then cast something as innocuous as Serum Visions and win the game. You can also win in a very corner case. You can have this out upkeep. You can Angel's Grace, spoils for a card you don't even have, cast spoils of the vault, and then your draw step comes and you're like, whoop! So it gives a deck like Ad Nauseam a really nice way to win the game when otherwise your opponent would gain too much life, whether they be on Soul Sisters or the Abzan combo. And this is just something that the opponents never expect. And it's a little more complicated to pull it off, but when you do, it just feels amazing.
Wow, this is one of those really awesome thematic, like Innistrad was so resonant and so interesting and cool and unique and flavorful. Like, this is the type of card that went right into the set where you're like, yeah, that's Gothic
That is
Horror.
what a Laboratory Maniac. Yep.
It also sees play in Vintage with the Doomsday decks, because part of Doomsday is getting rid of most of your deck. And so when you assemble your Doomsday pile, one of the things you do is Lab Maniac, and you're like, whoop, and then you just have no cards. And being able to win the game that way is so unique.
I like how Doomsday has done nothing but erode people's brains for a good decade plus at this point.
Oh yeah, there are articles. There's article upon article just on the piles of like, this could be this could be this. And I also don't want to comment on the flavor text of Lab Maniac. His mind world with grand plans, never thinking of what might happen if he were to succeed, and that's so good.
What are we gonna do tonight, Pinky?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the same thing we do every day.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Number 6, Ruben, what's your number 6?
So January 9th, 2017 is a day that lives in infamy in Aaron Campbell's mind because it's the day that Golgari Grave Troll was banned. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about a different card that was banned from the standard format on January 9th, 2017. Quote, "Our data showed that the blue-white flash deck was too powerful against the field. And Reflector Mage has been on players' lists of most disliked cards since the days of Collected Company. Other cards were discussed to check off blue-white flash, but Reflector Mage came up time and time again as both frustrating and a targeted way to diminish the blue-white flash deck. So my entry is Reflector Mage. It's colorless, a white and a blue, from the Oath of the Gatewatch expansion. It's a 2/3 for God who knows why. It has 3 toughness for absolutely no reason. It's a human wizard. When Reflector Mage enters the battlefield, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. That creature's owner can't cast spells with the same name as that creature until your next turn. Again, a Meddling Mage progeny later on down the line. The 3rd toughness, I've heard, was added during development stages to sort of boost blue-white in draft, to give them their multicolor uncommon was better, and they accidentally the whole format. Of course, the Bant Company mirrors were a bunch of Reflector Mages bouncing off of each other. I played a lot of mono-white, always watching style decks in that format, and I would splash blue off of Port Towns and whatnot, pretty much just for Reflector Mage. Sure, there were sideboard considerations, but because this card was so good, I had to have Reflector Mage.
Yeah, seeing play in the Modern Humans decks, being able to sneak this out with an Ether Vial. There's a lot of fatties in Modern, but being able to bounce a Wormcoil Engine, being able to bounce a Tarmogoyf, things that are normally hard to deal with are very easy for the Humans deck to deal with. And, by itself, I mean, we've certainly seen like Man of War type effects, in the history of Magic, but, the fact that it's that effect and then that the meddling effect is so over the top. And, it's kind of silly when you look back on it. You look at like the history of what's been banned in Standard, which typically doesn't see very many bans, and you're like, Memory Jar, Reflector Mage, and you're like, what?
Yeah. That was one of those, like, it literally just came from left field. No one was expecting Reflector Mage to be banned. I mean, I just didn't see it coming. Because it was stupidly annoying. Like, they were like, yeah, we had to fix it for draft. And you're like, well, you broke it for everything else.
Yep, exactly.
You turned all the unfun knobs up to 11 because, my God, it's both halves. One, it's a 2/3, which makes it just almost near impossible in just regular creature combat, and then you couldn't even play the card, and you always had another copy of whatever creature they bounced in your hand,
of course,
because reasons.
There's a great YouTube video of recent Pro Tour top 8er Elwyn Turtenwald going off on the design of Reflector Mage for about 15 minutes. I'm not sure where it is anymore, but I remember him describing Reflector Mage and why it's such a bad design for the better part of a quarter of an hour. It is just a delight.
It also made sideboards a lot more awkward because the answer to the Coco decks and the Rally the Ancestor decks came in the form of creatures. You had Anafenza and Kalitas, and so it looks really silly. Your opponent is so proud of themselves to get their Anafenza on turn 3, and it's like Reflector Mage, and it's like, there goes your answer, and because there were no artifacts at the time, no enchantments at the time, these decks were allowed to just kind of do whatever they wanted to do.
I mean, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, and for all of the poo-pooing we say about the design, there is no denying that no one thought that like you could make the world's best Man of War and it would never get banned. Like, it's never going to be that good. Right? Well, we were wrong.
Vintage. There's a deck in Vintage right now called Survival Salad, which is the Survival of the Fittest deck, and they have been known to run a copy of Reflector Mage as something they can tutor up against the Oath decks, because the Oath decks work so hard to oath out that Inferno Titan, and then you're like, Reflector Mage. So even in Vintage, it's being tested. Like, that says something.
Between that and like the fact that Spell Queller is in no way a fair Magic card. Never, at any point, was that card fair for the amount of money you paid for it. Insult on top of injury. Reflector Mage is incredibly powerful. Aaron, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is a card that sometimes sees play in a fringe version of Vintage Dredge that allows you to win the game on turn 1. If this card is in your opening hand and you have a Bazaar of Baghdad, a Dredger, and say like a Black Lotus or a Mock Sapphire or a Lion's Eye Diamond, you can dredge yourself stupid and go off on turn 1, which is unusual for Dredge to do. And when I say go off on turn 1, I mean you can kill your opponent on turn 1. I don't mean they're going to scoop. You can have it. I had never really experienced this card before until recently, and now that I've had a taste of it, I love it so much. It's famous in the Sunny Dredge decks. My number 6 is Fate Stitcher. So Fate Stitcher is 3 and a blue, creature type zombie wizard, 1 power, 2 toughness. You can tap it to tap or untap another target permanent. It has an unearth cost of 1 blue, which means you can return this card from your graveyard to play. It gains haste, remove it from the game at end of turn, or if it would leave play, unearth only is a sorcery. So you have a Bazaar activation on turn 1, you dump this in the graveyard. It basically lets you untap and tap Bazaar multiple times, and getting 2 activations off of Bazaar is backbreaking, and so you can run away with the game. If you have something like Lion's Eye Diamond, that's 3 blue, and if you're running at least 3 or 4 Fate Stitchers, you're probably going to find another one. And so going off on turn 1 is entirely possible. I did it on our Patreon stream the other night. I went off on turn 1 against a Storm deck, and it felt amazing. I was shaking, and I love this. I think it's a really neat card. It also saw play in the Jeskai Ascendancy decks in Modern as a way to untap the Sylvan Sylvan Caryatid, thank you. I even got a fringe use against this the other day against the Trinisphere. Trinisphere has to be untapped to do its thing. Ooh, I totally brought it back and was like, whoop, and then I dread returned.
Nice.
Yeah, so there are some weird applications to that, and card's great.
I mean, the card for me, I recall mostly in Shards of Alara Limited. I played lots of Shards of Alara Limited. This was an all-star, obviously. It would tap down anything. It came back and gave you that last little tap down for the win. Fate Stitcher is sweet. Obviously, it's just ridiculously busted when you can untap stuff like Bazaar Baghdad.
Yeah. Add this one to the list of creatures you didn't realize were wizards.
Yeah.
That are joining the likes of Boros Reckoner, like I wrote about or talked about earlier, or folks like Mongara of Karandor that are just like, all right, that's a wizard apparently, which is how you get 2,000 wizards in the Wizards of the Coast produced game.
It's true. Well, if we're going to move here to my number 6, let me tell you, this is also something you may not realized was a wizard. And also something we spoke a little bit about in the pre-show. We were talking about, blocks and returning to blocks and stuff, and how, man, wouldn't it be cool to go back to Lorwyn, because Lorwyn was totally sweet, and I loved Lorwyn. Lorwyn was actually on Magic Online a week or 2 ago that you could draft it.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
Because it's complicated Magic. Lorwyn is freaking
boy,
complicated.
how is it?
Like, mind-meltingly complicated. But if you love that, and I love that, then that's great Magic, and I really enjoyed it. But there's a fairy wizard, as it turns out. And it wasn't reprinted in all the way until Battle Bond. Sower of Temptation is 2 blue, 2 generic mana for a rare fairy wizard 2/2 flyer that comes into play and gains control of target creature for as long as Sower of Temptation remains in play. So it's control magic on top of a 2/2 flyer, control magic on a stick. It was amazing from the day it was printed. I recall the dagger forever that someone stole my foil copy out of my cube when I went to Nationals one year. There's no daggers like you let the people hang out in your room or crash in your room because they had nowhere else to go, and then they steal from your cube. That's a whole phenomenon unique to Magic players, but it doesn't matter. It just means that I love this card and I had to go get another foil version as soon as possible.
Right.
My first taste of this card was thanks to Sean McLaren. I think it was Pro Tour Valencia when he had that really deep Modern run at the Modern Pro Tour, and he was playing Jeskai, and this was one of his sideboard cards, I believe, and I'd never seen it before, and I was like, what? And he was stealing everything. He was stealing Tarmogoyf, and I was just like, wow. And because typically against the control decks, people were boarding out their creature removal, and so to get in there with this 2/2 and steal your best thing really is is quite powerful, and yeah, it's a good card.
Oh yeah.
This was popular in not only the blue-black fairies decks that were in standard, but also the blue-white Revelark decks. Being a 2/2 could be returned. Sometimes that 2/2 body was a liability, but sometimes it was a benefit. And Sower of Temptation, it's a hell of a card.
Oh man, it's so good. I always enjoy it. I mean, I happily first pick this type of thing. This card is terrific and always makes my main deck. All right, let's move on here to number 5. I don't have one. This is my last hire. So, Ruben, do you have a number 5?
I do. I have a different 2-colorless blue creature that is also a 2/2, that is also a wizard. In my number 5 slot, this one has won a Pro Tour. We've oftentimes referenced Pro Tour Valencia as won by 16-year-old wonder kid Remy Fortier. And his creature suite involved 4 of a creature we will discuss later, 3 of Trinket Mage, which I talked about earlier, and 4 of Honorary Wizard Tarmogoyf, alongside 2 copies of Venser Shaper Savant. So Venser, who's also one of the heroes of Magic, maybe just such a bro. Legendary creature, human wizard, originally from the Future Sight expansion, is so important to the story, in fact, that he was in From the Vault 20 as well. He's a 2/2 with flash. When Venser Shaper Savant enters the battlefield, return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. Not just a boomerang, although boomerang is quite good, quite powerful. So powerful, in fact, they don't print that card anymore because that's pseudo land destruction.
It's true.
But also target spell. So you can return, for example, in the finals of Grand Prix Valencia, uncounterable Enduring Ideals to the owner's hand. Uncounterable spells can be targeted by Venser, and they aren't targeted, they're just returned. Venser is a heck of a card, inspired the card Unsubstantiate, which came along later. Just an incredibly powerful, potent, interesting, fun, and story-relevant card.
And dead. He's dead. Look, he's really seriously dead.
But his memory lives on in the necklace that Joyra gave to Teferi to return his spark to him. So is he really dead if he's still alive in the minds of the children?
Wow.
Yes, he is. But my point is that he's a bro. He died well.
He's a bro, and he's swole, and it's great. And this was my number 7 because Venser Shaper Savant was such a force. It is really hard to calculate that they don't really give us this type of stuff on creatures. Like there was a few times where they went a little too far, and I think Solar Temptation was actually another one of those times where they're like, wow, maybe we shouldn't have given you like a totally free control magic. You should have given you like, some sort of restriction, only converted mana cost X or less or something, because Venser just dealt with everything, uncountable or not. It was a spell, it was a permanent end of turn. You bounce your stuff, you take care of the problem, and you kick your opponent's butt with it.
When you got to Venser a bounce land for that little while they were in standard together, boy howdy, did that. My head got light. I couldn't focus.
A little pee came out. Aaron, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a common that was originally printed in Magic 2011 and instantly became a very important combo piece for decks that like to sacrifice creatures. You look at it and it looks simple enough, and it looks like it would have a design that you would have either seen before or that you've seen after, but there really is nothing else like it. I have several commander decks that involve, sort of aristocrat shenanigans, like my She-Ray deck, and this, of course, was part of that. I had this in my Zombies deck as well. This is a very important piece of the Counters Company decks. My number 5 is Viscera Seer. So Viscera Seer is 1 black. It's a creature vampire wizard, 1 power, 1 toughness. Sacrifice a creature, scry 1. And the flavor text is great. In matters of life and death, he trusts his gut, because he's Viscera's guts. Yeah.
Viscera.
Wow.
So this is very important in the Counters Company decks. When you have something like Kitchen Finks, and then say you have your Malira, or say you have your Anafenza Kintree Spirits, you sacrifice your Kitchen Finks to the Viscera Seer for free. Then there's no cost to do that. You get Scry, and then it gets its persist counter, or if it has Malira, it doesn't get a persist counter, and you can basically just do that. Cocoing into this is just terrifying, and like I said, it looks harmless enough. When you're building decks for Commander, I was like, there's got to be other sack outlets out there, but none that are as good as this card, and that's probably the reason why we're never going to see sack outlets as good as this again. But it does a lot of good, and very good card.
It's the free part. It's
Yeah, it's
always
free.
the free part. It's as cheap as you can get a free sacrifice outlet to be, and it's still great. And it did amazing things in Standard, and it saw a ton of play. Has not been reprinted since. It's now $1.50. It showed up in Commander 2013 and Magic 2011, and that was it. And Wizards was just like, okay, we're going to move on. We're going to make you pay mana for it. Do something else weird, because free loops get started this way.
Free 1 mana sack outlets. I was a big proponent of a deck called Bubble Hulk in Old Extended, where I really desperately needed a card called Carrion Feeder to be in the format. And I was like, oh, Carrion Feeder's and Scourge, I guess I can't do that. There's got to be another 1 mana sack outlet that's been printed in the last 15 years. Nope. There hadn't been until Viscera. Viscera finally came along and finally provided us with that free sack outlet. There's a famous Sam Black quote where he said that when he was reading Veryl's The Scar Striped, he said he saw sacrifice a creature : and stopped reading. He was like, all right, free sack outlet. We did it.
Yeah.
Wrap it up. Time to go home, boys.
Can also sacrifice itself. You know, we talked about how they're never going to print anything like this again. Normally they add a cost to it or something, or they also add that weird clause of like other creature. You can do it to itself too if it comes down to it. Like, card is just great.
Oh yeah.
If you run out of everyone else's Viscera, like, what are you going to do? Not use your own Viscera? Come on. What's a seer to do? All right.
Exactly. And I'm looking through here, the list here. There is just no other free outlet beyond Carrion Feeder and Viscera Seer.
Yeah,
it's just
that's
a thing.
And both of those have been tournament quality commons for long periods of time in multiple formats.
Absolutely. All right. So we're gonna move on here to number 4. We're getting to the biggies now.
Yeah, that's right.
We're starting to get to the big dogs. Ruben, what's number 4?
Well, you mentioned the big dogs. I'm going to bring up a cat, if that's okay with you guys, a cat wizard. There haven't been a ton of cards, as I mentioned, that aren't blue, right? You don't necessarily think of green-white cats as being particularly tournament-playable wizards, but turns out they've won Pro Tours. In fact, there was an entire tournament, Pro Tour Austin in 2009, where Brian Kibler and Tsuyoshi Aikida played in the finals, and between them they had a grand total of 7, count them, 7 Quasali Pride Mages. So Quasali Pride Mage is a green and a white, originally from the Alara Reborn expansion. It's a 2/2 with Exalted, which means that whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And also has the ability of pay a colorless and sacrifice Quasali Pride Mage, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Boy, that's a heck of a card. There was also an F&M promo made of it. It was then later added to a dual deck and a commander expansion. Anytime Kibler wins a tournament with a Naya-colored deck, that gives you some amount of clout and pedigree and says that, yeah, I think you're okay in the green-white area of things. Just so happens to be a wizard, so we get to bring it up here.
Yeah, C's playing at least 2 formats. Modern, again, that counters company decks. Love it. Anything with Collected Company and Court of Calling, you can go looking for this card. It can get rid of just about it's main deck worthy. It's a main deck worthy card. Maverick in Legacy likes this card. You can get it with Green Sun Zenith. I mean, card's ridiculously powerful either by itself or, if you don't have anything to destroy, it still has an Exalted trigger attached to it, which is great.
And I'm pretty sure it's Quasali, not Quasali.
Yeah, I was like, is this a Quiznos thing? Like,
no, it's just me not being from there, so I don't know how to pronounce it right. It's like when people are going to come to Vegas next week and they're going to say Nevada instead of Nevada, or if you go to Dominaria and instead you call it
is coming to Nevada with us because we don't pick up our refuse while we're gone.
Oh.
As the family Irwin has informed us. So.
Well, it's Quasali.
Well, all I know is this card was freaking fantastic. If you could imagine a world where I was like getting crazy excited about Watch Wolf, this is like Watch Wolf on steroids. This is nuts. Yeah. This not only becomes its own 3/3 when it's attacking, it immediately affects the board by pumping whatever you're attacking with by itself. Yep. It has the disenchant right on it. It's perfect for all these decks. It saw play immediately. It was an all-star from the very get-go. This was one of the hot, like really exciting uncommons from commons from Alara Reborn. Yeah. To this day, I still can't believe this card was common. I mean, it's so good for just a common. That's nuts. That's sad. Let's see. So, Aaron, what's your number 4?
I remember reading somewhere that Simic is the most popular color combination in EDH. I don't remember where I saw that, and that fact may have changed, and if it has, YouTube will certainly correct me. But it's no secret why when you look at this card. This card came out in Theros, did next to nothing in Standard. Like, it pretty much debuted in Standard with a thud. But EDH players lost their minds. And lost their minds so much, they went and got it banned. And it takes a lot to get banned in Commander, but this card has the distinction of being one of those. Number 4 is Prophet of Kruphix. So Prophet of Kruphix is 3 colorless, a green and a blue, creature type human wizard, 2 power, 3 toughness. Untap all creatures and lands you control during each other player's untap step. You may then cast creature spells as though they had flash. So it's basically like a Seedborn Muse on speed. Yeah. Art is beautiful, Winona Nelson. It did nothing in constructed formats, but damn it, the EDH players just ran into the ground, and I remember it being a reasonably short amount of time where it was gone. Yeah. And there's just nothing else like it. I remember I was building a deck the other day, Muldrotha, in fact, and I was just like, oh, well, you know, I couldn't afford a Seedborn Muse because they were $30 at the time. Thanks, Battleborn. I'm going to get a Seedborn Muse. But I remember just trying to find cards that had a similar effect because I couldn't afford a Seedborn Muse. I'm going through Gather, and I'm like, well, there's Prophet. And nothing else.
Rats, yeah.
And it really just comes down to like those 2 cards. Maybe there's like an Awakening, which is that weird
enchantment. Yeah, Awakening's the enchantment that does it.
But yeah, but this is just, there's just such a powerful ability, and specifically in EDH, and that's why there's so few cards that do this.
I haven't played a ton of Commander in my life, but what little Commander I have played in the last couple years, I got to play against a deck with Prophet of Kruphix before it was banned, and no, it was disgusting. No. It was wrong. It was bad, and they should feel bad because that card is dumb. You're just like, Prophet, go, untap. Oh, during your upkeep, Zagana, draw a million cards. You're going to do something? Okay, great. For your turn over there, I'm going to untap and do this again, blah, blah, blah.
And the 2 halves by themselves aren't bad. Like, if it was just a 2/3 that had the flash, okay, fine. Sure. A 2/3 that had the Seedborn thing, fine. But it's when you mash them all together.
Combination.
Yeah. So good.
It was nuts. I haven't played a ton of Commander or any Commander with this card, but I did play a good amount of Theros Limited, and this card was something that even in a format that didn't have great mana fixing, if I opened this in pack 3, I would like try to make it work because this card was just absolutely like, even if it's good in Commander, in a limited format, if your opponent like plays a Hill Giant on 4 and you're like, all right, 5th land, Prophet, go, untap. And then they're like, either kill it, at which point in response I'll play a Nessian Asp, or I'll just play my Nessian Asp at end of turn. It's just like, what? Like, that card is just absurd in every way, shape, or form.
So, my number 4, I'm a little surprised, honestly, that we haven't hit it yet, and or it wasn't higher on someone else's list. That, you know, we're into that territory, right?
Yeah.
Because this card was infamous from essentially day one. It was, why is this card showing up in the formats that it was pretty much on day one? Like, this card, we've already talked about this card. I mean, like, it was part of one of the first set reviews I ever did, and we just like went right by it because who gives a crap? It's ridiculous. This card wasn't that good. It's just a 1 mana whatever. I mean, at the end of it, you know, the quote is, unfortunately, all my test animals have died or escaped, so I shall be the final subject. I feel no fear. This is a momentous night. The laboratory notes final entry, because I'm talking about Delver of Secrets, which later turns into Insectile Aberration.
That's which Delver of Secrets, not very good. Insectile Aberration, very good.
Very, very, very powerful magic card from the common from Innistrad. Delver of Secrets is a 1 blue, 1/1 common human wizard. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If it's an instant or sorcery revealed this way, transform it into Insectile Aberration, which is a 3/2 flying insect, a human insect.
Human insect, not a wizard. So we couldn't put Insectile Aberration on the list. We had to put Delver of Secrets on the list. This was my number 10.
Okay, so. That's fair. So it was on the list.
Yeah. I mean, it sees play in at least 4 formats. I mean, it was a standard powerhouse, Legacy. It's the deck to beat in Legacy, whatever whatever shade of it you're playing, whether it be Grixis or 4-color, or you're playing Sultai Delver. It even sees play in Vintage with cards like Wasteland and even Young Pyromancer. Pauper, there's been talk of it possibly being banned in Pauper, because as Pauper gains in popularity, there are more players and therefore more eyes on the format, and a lot of people have noticed how ubiquitous Delver is there. I don't really think of it in Commander, but I mean Standard, Pauper, Modern, Legacy. It's not as big in Modern, but it pops up every once in a while. There's a very devoted fan base around it. But Standard, Modern, Vintage, Legacy, Pauper, 5 formats. Like, how many cards can say that? There's just total domination.
I mean, there's a reason
and
it's a $3
Frontier,
card.
Evan. Sorry.
And tiny leaders. And
it is technically legal in
pre-modern.
No.
Pre-modern girl.
Not pre-modern.
Not pre-modern.
Because this is actual modern.
This is post-modern.
But yeah, Delver of Secrets. The very first token that I ever had made of myself was as part of the In Contention podcast, and Sam Stoddard, Matt Kranstuber, and myself, we all became famous wizards from throughout Magic's history, and I was the Delver of Secrets, holding up instead of holding up a cage, I was holding up a camera, and I had a little microphone in my hand.
Aww.
And that
was awesome. And I got to
if I was a Delver of Secrets, sequence
hunting rabbits.
If I was a Delver of Secrets, I would want really big hair, which I already have, because my hair would be so big it's full of secrets. Delver.
Wow. I mean,
C. Give me a C.
C-.
I'll give you a C, Fritz. All right.
Wow. Oh, that hurt. It was great to talk to Eric Lauer and to him explain, like, I was talking to Rosewater, who thought this card wasn't very good, and Eric's like, I think this card can get there. I think this card has some potential, because if you go back and you watch the Innistrad set review with me and Jerry Thompson, I swear to God, we spent about 7.5 seconds on this card. We're like, this is dumb. You're never going to make this happen on your draft deck. Yeah. Never again. That was it. That was the final talk on it.
And you're right. You're never going to make it work in your draft deck.
You're not. Don't ever do it. It's not worth it, I promise. Okay, moving on here to top 3. We got top 3. Whoo! Ruben, what's your number 3?
It's sad story time. Because my number 3 is about the most famous triplets in the history of Magic: Visa, Endry, and Ileona, better known as the Vendilion Clique. If you want to have a good cry, if you want to sit down at your computer, read a Wikipedia page, try not to cry, and then cry a lot, this is a good one for you. But I'll let you do that in your own time, because the rest of the text about Vendilion Clique is going to make you happy because of how good the card is. It's a colorless, a blue and a blue originally. From Morningtide, it's a legendary fairy wizard. 3/1 flash flying for 3 mana. I'm already sold. It doesn't have to do anything else. But wait, there's more. If you order now, Vendilion Clique enters the battlefield. It lets you look at target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, that player reveals the chosen card, puts it onto the bottom of his or her library, then draws a card. So it's hand disruption. It's a fast clock. It's evasion, all for the low, low cost of 3 mana.
It's very important to note that you can also target yourself. I seem to recall there being an issue on coverage recently. It might have been at an open where the opponent just assumed they were being the target and then just threw their hand on the table, and the player was like, "Yeah, that was me." And so, a lot of times
it was even better than that. If I recall correctly, the player cast Vendilion Clique, the other player put their hand on the table, and then his opponent went,
"Yeah,
all right, target myself."
Yeah, so a lot of times when you're playing a blue deck, sometimes your answers don't line up to what's happening. And so you can oftentimes just target yourself. And so, just so you're aware, when your opponents do play this, make sure that you know who the target is before you go ahead and spill your beans to everybody.
Absolutely. And the flip side of that is the recent example of Paul Rietzel 2 Pro Tours ago, I think. No, maybe it was a Grand Prix in the last season, where he played a Vendilion Clique and his opponent is about to put it on the table, and Paul physically pushes the hand away and says, whoa, 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 target myself.
Good guy, Paul Rietzel.
Yeah. Paul Rietzel actually is one of the good guys, and he is
for sure.
an incredibly amazing Magic player. And, of course, I feel like I jinxed him over the Pro Tour weekend when I was like, dude, he's such a great player, and he makes these incredible lines, and then he made a really terrible mistake, and it was bad.
Oh, well.
Did I ever tell you I taught him how to use Skype?
No.
So right before he became,
tell that story. That's great.
Right before he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, I had him on the deck tease, and he didn't know that we needed to do the interview via Skype. He's like, "Oh, you're just gonna come to a GP, right?" And I was like, "No, we need to do it over Skype." And he was like, "Yeah, I still use AOL." And I remember the people from his testing team, Kai included, had sent me a tweet, and they were like, "Thank God you brought him into the 21st century," because he had never downloaded it before. And I was literally over the phone coaching Paul on how to install Skype, how to set it up, and then we did our interview together. And then he was in the Hall of Fame shortly after.
Right.
Wow, that was awesome.
You're welcome, Mr. R.
All thanks. Yeah, there you go. All thanks to you teaching him how to use Skype. Yeah, if we did a top 10 wizards that weren't magic cards, like actually just wizards, Paul Rietzel might make the top 10 of one of our lists. He'd certainly be on the short list for sure.
Oh, he is terrific. Now, this Vanillion Clique itself was my number 5 because there's no doubt the power of this card. This was one of the gotcha cards. I mean, it still happens now, the whole, like, your opponent flops your hand down or whatever, or you can have good guy Rietzel, or like he stops that. But more than likely, particularly back in the day in Extended or whatever, when it first showed up, and then the next level blue and all this other stuff, people just always assume you were targeting them, and they just throw their hand down. You just be like, all right, target me. That's great.
There's also the only reason for your opponent's draw step stop to exist on Magic Online.
It's one of the few. Instant speed hand disruption, not necessarily discard, which there is with Mardu Charm, but instant speed hand disruption is incredibly
Mardu Charm,
rare.
Funeral Charm, it does not come around all the time.
Right, just a couple others, because vanilla. I mean, I've seen people literally like write down their opponent's hand and then go target me. I mean, like just savage burns. Savage.
Yeah, that's a brutal one.
Whew, need ointment and stuff afterwards. It's bad. All right, let's see. Aaron, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a card that came out very recently and had an immediate impact on multiple formats. In Modern, it was so good that it bumped out Pyromancer's Ascension, which had been a staple of Modern Storm for as long as I can remember. It reinvigorated the Storm archetype. It immediately, when Brawl came out, it dominated Brawl to the point where it needed to be banned. It's banned in 1v1 Commander. Hasn't really done too much in Standard, but in older formats, it's just been ridiculous. I've seen it tested in Vintage to a certain degree. My number 3 is Baral, Chief of Compliance. So Baral is 1 in the blue, legendary creature, human wizard, 1 power, 3 toughness. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. When you're playing something like Storm, having a nice butt on it of 3 toughness means you can reasonably block some creatures. But once you get going with this, it's just off the chain. You can start casting your Manamorphoses, which are then costing 1 colorless less to cast. You're drawing, you're discarding, you're feeding your Past in Flames. I mean, the card is just ridiculous. And to have, for newer cards to have such an impact on older formats, you have to be really, really good. And then to see the chaos it caused in sort of the Commander formats, like Brawl and 1v1, just instant dominance, just seeing ridiculous numbers of like 50% of the format, 60% of the format, just dominance we haven't seen before in what appears to be just a kind of an innocent looking card.
They broke
This
it.
was my number 7.
Nice.
As you guys know, I take into account, is a card so good, is it so busted that it is broken or it is banned somewhere? I take that into account very highly in my rankings of cards. And of the wizards that have ever been printed, the other ones that are banned in any format, for those of you who are interested, are Prophet of Krufix, of course, Zur the Enchanter, and Deveri Imperial Tactician. Zerevi. All right. Well, I'm not from Quasali. I'm not from here. So, but and then of course Reflector Mage and Baral are the 2 that had the biggest impacts, and most recently Baral just taking over the Brawl format that it was named for. Being over 50% of top 8s and top 16s and top 32s until it was booted from the format.
Wow, yeah, this card is just a powerhouse in and of itself. This is one of those like, wow, really? That's the thing? And then,
that is a ton of stuff to be able to do on a very cheap package.
Yeah, incredible. And again, a 1/3, like again, 3 toughness is a very important number. It can block 2 2s or 2 1s all day long. It was busted in 1v1 Commander, just ridiculous. I'm glad they got rid of it there. They got rid of it in Brawl, which they kind of could say named after it, but it deserves the boot. It was too good. Sometimes things are way too good. Sometimes they're so good that they kind of take over Standard, and then they start making their way into older formats. It's a little less sizzle in the pan for this one these days. However, as a human wizard, this one was one of the most exciting, impactful, came out of not necessarily nowhere, but definitely when LSV said, hey, Jace Viren's Prodigy is like the best card in Magic Origins, everyone was like, wait a minute, we thought that card was terrible. And it is not terrible. It is, in fact, one of the best wizards ever printed. Jace Viren's Prodigy is a mythic legendary human wizard from Magic Origins. It is a 0/2 for a blue and generic mana. Tap, draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 5 or more cards in your graveyard, exile Viren's Prodigy, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. Jace Telepath Unbound is a Planeswalker Jace, of course, with 5 loyalty. It has a +1 up to 1 target creature gets -2/-0 until your next turn. -3, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that card will be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Or -9, you get an emblem with, quote, whenever you cast a spell, target opponent puts the top 5 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So this card turned into a complete beating. It's a Merfolk Looter that turns into a Planeswalker, which kind of turns sort of like a pseudo Jace, Snapcaster type thing, and it was just ridiculous. And it got to be $50 and like $55, and people were like, "Where is the stopping point for this Jace in Standard?" It got to be absolutely crushing until it finally rotated. And these days, at least the price is somewhat reasonable. It's like a $20 card, essentially, where it used to be way, way more expensive.
It was hovering around 80 when I needed mine, and thank God for Puka Trade, as I got most of mine through Puka Trade at the time. I was playing Esper Dragons, and yeah, this card was fantastic. You see it in older formats and Vintage specifically. In Modern, people like to pair it with things like Goryo's Vengeance, where you get a neat little, you get the Jace back, and then when you sacrifice it, or if you do sacrifice it, it has haste, and you can whoop, it becomes a Jace, and you get around the little claws. And I actually got to deck somebody with the ultimate one time. That felt pretty good. And there were Delve was also in the format, so you were able to feed your treasure cruises, your dig through times, your murderous cuts. It was one of the few times that I ever played a blue Planeswalker, and it was so good, so good.
I'm a big fan of a Merfolk Looter. Shout out to Adam Prozak. And Jace Viren's Prodigy. I mean, I can't imagine them ever printing a better Merfolk Looter than this. It's just so powerful, so good. The San Diego Comic-Con promos are still hovering up around $125 a piece. Obviously, those black on black, matte on shiny printings are super in demand as well. And if Reddit is to be believed, we might be going back to Vryn next summer and visit the Mage Rings and see Jace's hometown. So maybe in a year or two we'll be seeing more of Jace. Probably not in his Vryn's Prodigy form.
Probably not, because it's ridiculous.
It is absurd.
It is way, way, way good. So it is time for a Magic Mike's top 10 first. We have at one time in our lives all chosen the same number 1. We have even, so I think I recall 2 of us having the same number 2 and number 1, but never have all 3 of us had the same number 2 and the same number 1. And that was incredible. And even in the same order. It's not even like we had the same 2 and they're in different orders or whatever.
Right.
No, same order, same number 2, same number 1. Aaron, what's our number 2?
Oh, man. So our number 2 is primarily known by its nickname. I don't really hear its actual proper name being spoken too much, but it's known by the name of the young man who inspired the artwork for it. There's certainly been, and we talked a little bit earlier in the show, specifically with Meddling Mage, how they've kind of moved away from having, the prose, that form of artwork around anymore. There have been reprints and they haven't really used that art. And so you don't get to see the Finkel art anymore for Shadow Mage Infiltrator, or the Kai art, or the Tiago Chan art anymore. But this artwork is synonymous with this card, and it's simply known as Bob. Our number 2 is Dark Confidant. Yeah. So Dark Confidant costs 1 and a black. It's a human wizard, power 2, toughness 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. I remember when the first time I saw this card, I was like, why would I want this? Like, why would I want to hurt myself? Like, I don't understand. And then once I actually built Modern Jund, I was like, oh.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
The card is bananas. Jund has obviously had a bit of a resurgence lately in Modern. Sees play in Modern, Legacy, and Vintage. As far as I know, I don't know. Did it see play in Standard? I wasn't around for that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yes. So much play.
Tell us, Grandpa.
Gather around, children, when I was cracking them packs, and I was like, hell for I got 2-1. It's going to let me draw some stuff. And it did, too, because it was in the format with Sensei's Divining Top, which was ridiculous. And then it was also in the thing with Counterbalance, too, which was also insane. Yeah. But Dark Confidant, Bob Maher, the great one himself, who these days actually owns a game distributing company, which is really cool because Cool Stuff Inc. does business with the ACD distributors, which is what he owns, and I get to have business, dinners and lunches and stuff with Bob. It's really cool. Nice. It's actually really sweet. So I can kind of get to geek out that way because there's not enough good things to say about Dark Confidant. It has time and time again been Wizards wants to give you a Dark Confidant without giving you a Dark Confidant, so they're like Glint Sleeve Siphoner or like Pain Seer when it doesn't work out.
Yep. And Ruin Raider,
Asylum Visitor.
See, there's
Dark Tutelage.
A ton of options, but nothing matches swinging for 2 and or getting a free card every single turn. Bob is just mwah.
It is so iconic that every individual part of the card is iconic. The name, the casting cost, the ability, the flavor text, greatness at any cost, everything about the card. You know what Bob is.
Yeah. There's few things there's few tournaments I can actually say I won. I've played a lot of tournaments. I made top 8 a lot, top 4, top 2. But I have won a Magic tournament thanks to Dark Confidant, and that's a rare thing for me to be able to say. Cause
my favorite memory involving this card was at Eternal Extravaganza. I think it was a year ago. It was the Vintage tournament, and there was a young man who was on Sultai, and he was playing against Dredge, and he died because he flipped over 2 Leyline of the Voids. Yep. He was sitting at 8, and he got really confident and had 2 Bobs out, and he already had 1 Leyline out. So Dredge was having a really hard time dealing with that, and he got really confident, played his second Bob, and then flips over the first one, take 4 Leyline of the Void, does his second one, Leyline of the Void, and I was like, holy cow! Like, that felt like a hug from Jesus.
You got to be careful. I played Greater Gargadon in my deck in Standard.
I've taken 8 from Hit Run a couple of times. I've seen Vintage players take a Blightsteel 12 to the face or 11 to the face. I've taken more than my fair share of 5 from Force of Will, and then 6 because you paid life. That's you live by this greatness at any cost. It doesn't say a modicum of cost. It doesn't say the occasional life point. It says any cost.
Still a $70 to $80 card despite the reprints. It's just extremely powerful.
And this was also one of the first cards that was reprinted that was an invitational card that didn't have the original art. And again, Alara Reborn with Meddling Mage was the first, but this was the one where you were just like, they're all in on not giving us the old artwork, and that was really frustrating because as cool as Skrillex is, he doesn't need to be my Dark Confidant, okay? He really doesn't. There's nothing wrong with that. He just doesn't need to be my Dark Confidant. But we're going to move here to number 1 again.
Speaking of changing artworks from invitational cards.
Do you know The Weeknd actually is on one of our Magic cards?
Shout out to The Weeknd.
It's fantastic. But I got to say, this one was great because this one to me was just the snap. No pun intended, but this was the snap number 1 choice. This was, Ruben, it's the snap number 1. Them subliminal hits, bro.
Unbelievable.
Ruben, what's our number 1?
I don't even want to read it anymore. Our number 1 is Snapcaster Mage. So Snapcaster Mage is, of course, Tiago Chan's invitational card, the last of the invitational cards, and they went out with a bang with them. So they got that going for them, which is nice. Snapcaster Mage is a colorless and a blue for a 2/1 human wizard. Sound familiar? This one has flash. And when Snapcaster Mage enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So
card is ridiculous. When you pair this, we talked before about how Legacy and Vintage likes their cheap cards. Being able to surgical something free, like a surgical extraction, is like, why? Why? Yep. When you get into Vintage, a lot of the good cards are restricted. Well, you essentially get a second copy of Time Walk or a second copy, of Ancestral Recall or something like that. It takes any instant or sorcery card and essentially gives you an extra copy. This card is a win condition. There are some control decks where the plan is 4 Snapcasters, 25 spells, some lands, and call it a day. That's the plan. Like you know, I've seen so many people go down on coverage thanks to snap, bolt, snap, bolt. That's it. Yep. That's the plan. Helix, snap. That's all they came to do, and God bless them.
It turns every corner case card in your main deck or sideboard into another copy of it. So if Celestial Purge is what you need, there you go. There's an extra copy. If you just want another Gitaxian Probe, cool, man. You got another free draw card and way to look at your opponent's hand. But then you've got stuff like, you know, every corner case card becomes an Ancient Grudge or a Ray of Revelation. Every individual mana leak becomes that much more threatening. You get more Cryptic commands later in the game that you go. Snapcaster Mage, for good reason, still an insanely popular card. All of the versions of it, from the Pro Tour promo, from the original Innistrad card to the Modern Masters, new art, is just absolutely spectacularly good and well deserving of a spot as number one.
Originally didn't have Flash, and they were like, wow, we should, you know, they made that change late, as I recall. Yeah. And you're like, what?
Why?
Originally, so I thought that originally this was going to be they pitched it as colorless and a red, give a sorcery flashback.
Oh.
Okay.
And then they made it flash, made it blue, and then made it insane.
And you can tell, like, you know, now you look at something like Torrential Gearhulk, where it's like, yeah, it's going to cost 6.
Sure.
Like,
and
we're
still
never
doing well, still top 8 in growth.
You see things since then, and you get, like, you know, a Nethomancer, like, you know, Archaeomancer. It costs like 4. Like, this is never going to be. It's never going to be as good as this again. I think Wizards knows that, but yeah, the card is broken.
It was fantastic that they debuted, they unveiled this at the first Modern Pro Tour. That was this was the spoiler during the first Modern Pro Tour.
Yeah. And spoiler alert, it's going to be good in Modern.
Back when they used to give you good news at Pro Tours.
Wow.
The shade of it all. The other interesting thing with Snapcaster Mage is that it behaves differently with cards in graveyards than Jace Vern's Prodigy that you were talking about earlier, or Telepath Unbound after you flip it, in that this grants it flashback, whereas Jace says you could just cast them. So, for example, with Snapcaster Mage, you can only, for example, pay the 5 on Force of Will, not pay the alternate cost. Mm-hmm. And so, while not as good in that circumstance, it's okay. Snapcaster Mage is doing all right. Number 1 overall, easy choice. A snap, as it were. Hold on. There we go. Now half of existence is gone. I don't know what happened.
Wow.
More spoilers.
I don't feel so good. I don't feel so well.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was our top 10 wizards. You will see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about which card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-hosts. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you, Evan. I think you're really wizard.
You're the wizard-iest as we move to our...
If we could wrap this up, I have to go take a wizard, so...
Wow.
Holy cow.
She's off to see the wizard.
The wonderful wizard. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Visit our website. Not right now. Later. Or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv, at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, on our Magic Mikes subreddit, and the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at magicmikespodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmikespodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.